Hello, today I'm going to be walking you through rechambering your cylinder head on your YZ250 two-stroke, or any two-stroke for that matter. It might be a little bit different than other ones, but you'll get the idea. And you can do this at home if you have a certain number of just weird stuff. I'll run you through that. Here's the bike we'll be working on today. This is a 2010 YZ250. It has a stock head still on it. The thing about the heads is, in 2003, Yamaha used the same cylinder head all the way to 2010 here in America. It had a 5 UP on it, and that had a good compression ratio, although the squish band clearance was a little bit too thick. I usually find them at about 67 thousandths. Starting in 2011, and the American model started using the European head, the one that they used in Europe, starting in 2003 all the way to 2022. This has a much lower compression ratio. You can see how big the lip is right here. Had a much lower compression ratio to be able to run basically very poor octane, very poor fuel. They started implementing this on the American model starting in 2011. So if you don't want to do all this, what I'm about to show you today, you just want to boost your power up a little bit, and you have a 2011 to 2022, you can just get the 2006 to 2010 head that has a 5 UP on it, and that'll give you a good boost of power, mainly off the bottom and through the mid. The other head, the low compression head, is the 5 MW. So that way you can look at your bike and figure out which one you have. So here's some of the things you're going to need for this job. These little pipe fittings right here, for your air tools. What you need to do, or what I do, is I grind this little lip that you see right here. I just smoothen that out to make it like this, and I'll show you why in a little bit. And then I do that with another one, and I pound the socket that barely fits on it. And the reason being is these fit really good in the head right here, and they'll allow us to spin this head so we can turn it and work it the way we want to work it. So you're going to need one of each like that, one without a socket on it, and one with a socket on it. You want to smooth it out. Like I said, you remove that rib. I'll show you. And so you want to make it like this one right here. Another thing you'll need is, for this to work properly, is you'll need a reducer and a swivel, 3/8 drive swivel. And then you'll need a cordless drill or some type of drill to spin it. You'll need these right there, because what you'll do is you'll hook that up to here and you'll be able to spin the head. Alright, we got that situated. You also need some plexiglass, and you'll have to drill holes in it to the exact spot of the cylinder head, and that's so we can see the head using this right here to figure out the total volume. You'll need some solder to check the squish band clearance on the bike. This solder right here measures, I have a few different thicknesses, but this one measures about 90 thousandths. So now we're going to be bringing the squish band clearance to about 40 thousandths. So you'll need some solder that is at least 67 thousandths to check the stock squish band, and if you got to be able to flatten it down to 30 thousandths. I do have some thinner solder if this one starts giving us a hard time, but you get the idea. And then you'll need assortment of nuts and bolts like this to balance out the head. And the reason I say that is because as you start spinning this head, remember the fitting that I put together right here? There'll be a point in this job that we'll have to spin the head while it's upside down. And this side of the head right here where the mount is at is heavier than where the water fitting's at, which causes it to, and that you can't work with that. So what you'll need is to balance it out by putting a set of bolts on this side right here. See? And now we can work with it. So that's why, I mentioned on the YZ250 head, I'll measure it for you and let you know about what weight that you need and bolts and hardware and stuff. So there you go, that's in ounces, 1.33 ounces. Then you'll also need another set for when you're So when we're milling the head or turning the head this way, you'll need about the same weight to balance it out. Like that, but it can't go all the way through so that it touches the sandpaper that we're working with. That's why I did it like this. And it's about the same weight. Hold on here. One ounce, 1.37 of an ounce. So, you know, somewhere in the 130 range, and this YZ250 head will be balanced. Then you'll need another set of nuts and bolts just to be able to clamp it down to here to be able to CC the head so we get the volume. Again, we'll be working with the 06 head. The first, and that's the compression ratio. There's, I guess I better start here. Give me a second. All right, this area right here, this is called the squish band, and when the piston comes up, it squishes the charge in this area into the center dome area right here where the spark plug fires and lights it off. So what we're going to do is first we're going to mill the head to get the squish band clearance. At its stock is at about 67 thousandths. We're going to get it to about 40 thousandths. But at that point, the compression ratio will be way too high. 250 two-stroke, or all two-strokes, they have what they call pumping losses. When the motor's trying to compress it, if the compression is too high, you'll lose top end significantly. You do gain bottom end by raising your compression ratio, but it's not an even trade-off. You'll lose more top end than what you gain bottom end as you raise the compression ratio. It's not an even trade-off. So what you want is you want the highest compression ratio that you can without actually robbing the top end power, so that you still retain good bottom end while still also having good top end. The stock 06 head, or should I say the stock head with the 5 UP from 2003 to 2010, had what I would consider the best compression ratio. That's the overall volume that's left in here when the head's completed. That had the best balance of top and bottom end. So we want to retain that. We just want to get the squish band clearance closer or tighter. So we'll be reopening this dome up to relieve the compression to get it close to stock. In order to do that, we have to first CC the head to measure what it is. Since all these little plastic things are, you know, I mean, it's probably from China. I don't expect it to be very accurate, so you want to use the same one. You want to measure it first before you cut, and then as you're cutting later on, when you go to set the compression ratio back to the original compression ratio of the 2003 to 2010 head, you'll use the same syringe. So let me go ahead and get this head off this bike here real quick, and we'll get to it. Oh, let me add this too. You're also going to need a ton of sandpaper. I got multi-grit here. We're going to need the 60 to turn the head to get the squish band clearance. Then we're going to need some lighter stuff at the end to polish things up. Also need something very, very flat. I'm going to use this granite table right here so that, you know, you get a nice flat edge as we turn this. All right, let me get that head off and we'll get moving. All right, got the head off. It's just a 5 UP head, 03 to 2010. Maybe a quick recap of why we're doing this. Anything that sits between the squish band and anything that sits between the squish band and the piston, when the piston comes up the top dead center here, you know, it'll be like this, but you get what I'm saying. Any of the air and field, the charge that sits between the squish band and the piston does not actually get burnt. So any clearance that you have, which stock is about 67 thousandths, that's wasted fuel. It will never get burnt. The only thing that actually ignites and creates a fire and power is what gets squeezed into the dome area. So by decreasing the clearance between the squish band and the piston, when the piston's at top dead center, we essentially push or cram more of the air and fuel into this dome area, so that's where you're going to get your increase in horsepower. Now, obviously what I was mentioning about compression ratio a few minutes ago, a lower compression ratio will maybe free up the top end a little bit, and a higher compression ratio will give you more bottom end, but it's not an even trade-off. So what you really want is the magic middle ground where you get the best of the torque and the best of the top end. And like I mentioned earlier, 03 to 2010, the American model had that compression ratio right. So that's what we'll be duplicating here. I've done a lot of different head profiles. I played with different squish band clearances, different compression ratios. And what I'm going to be showing you today is what I call basically the Weekend Warrior setup, or the magic medium. It's a good profile to run 50-50, 50% of 110 leaded race feel and 50% of pump gas, and this will do great. And it's not too hard on the motor itself. I have tried the full race spec, like what they used to use on Ricky Carmichael's RM250 in 2005, which ran a squish band clearance of 30 thousandths. I've tried that, and it made a lot of power, but at that point it starts starting to beat up on the crank and stuff like that. Where at 40 to 50 thousandths, what we're shooting at today, we're shooting for 40 thousandths today, I haven't seen any accelerated wear on the crank at all. So, you know, so anywhere, you need at least 50 thousandths, as tight as 50 thousandths to start to feel it. By 40 thousandths, you feel it really good. If you get it down to 30 thousandths, that's a full race spec head, and it makes a lot of power, but you pay for it with increased maintenance. So the goal here today is to keep it at 40 thousandths so we don't increase our maintenance, you know, through the roof, and at the same time to be able to run 50-50 mixture of pump and race feel. So that's where we're going at with this today. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and the very first step in this job, this is for the YZ250 two-stroke, is to pull these little pins out. Because as you mill the head, these pins won't be able to sink into the head far enough. So as we turn the head and just remove this material right here, these pins will be too long and they bottom out in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shave these down just a little bit. You want to shave these down to 7.25 millimeters. So let's see here. Right now, let me change this to metric. Right now they're 7.86. We got to bring them down to 7.25. So that's what I'm going to do right now. We're getting there. Oops, a little overdue. Overdid it a little bit. That's okay. And you want to, after you shave it, just move it, round it out. And let that one cool down for a minute. And I'll recheck it. And I'll do the next one. Okay, got it down to 7.18. Kind of overdid it a little bit. That's okay. As long as it sticks out the top and it has something for the head to slide into to align it, that's all that matters. I'm going to go ahead and put these back on the motor now. Okay, I got them back in place. One right here and one back here. Now we're going to go ahead and just get a base setting of what this squish is. I'm expecting to see 67 thousandths, but I'll show you how you do this. Let's do it. Alright, you take your piece of solder, move the piston down a little bit here, and you want to just have it just a little bit wider than the actual cylinder bore. Clip it. Give it a little bend, like make it shaped like this. You want to pretty much get it where it just hangs in there on its own, going straight across the cylinder the best you can. There you go. You see how I have it going across the cylinder? And now we're going to put the cylinder head back on with just 2 light bolts, just enough to hold it on. You don't have to have the gaskets on or anything like that. Just, you know, the O-rings, just drop the cylinder head on. And I only put 2 bolts in it, one on the left side and one on the right side, or 2 nuts. That's enough to, you know, hold it on for this test. I don't even use the brass washers during this time, just bare minimum, because I'm going to be doing this so many times before this job is completed that I'm just trying to eliminate as many little steps as I can to keep it simple and quick. Okay, once you do that, now you get on the bike and you move the kickstart to crush the solder. Got to kind of, there it is. Then you remove the head. And then we're going to measure it. There it is. All right. Put it back to inches. $66,000, $65,000. I was close. I usually find about 67, but you know, it just could be the tool needs to be recalibrated. Close enough. There you go, 67, 66. Let me recalibrate it, see what we come up with here. 68. Yeah. 65, depending on where I put it. 63. But that's stock, and that's usually about where they come at, which is way too much. Any more than 50,000, then you're literally just, you might as well not even have the squish band on it. At least that's what I hear. I haven't tested it out myself. But I do know that anything lower, anything tighter than 50,000, and that's when the magic starts to happen, and that's what we're looking for here is magic. Gonna use some 60 grit here to cut quick. We gotta get this thing down to about 40 thousandths. Throw some spray adhesive on there. That way it doesn't run on us. Throw a little bit down here too. Alright, let's stick her on. Give that a second to dry and we're going to start turning her. Which, by the way, my first fitting I made actually broke on me a few minutes ago. So I grabbed this one. It's like a high flow one, and I pounded this 7/16 on it. So that'll be what we use today to turn this head. Alright, just screw that on. A little WD-40. That's all this is, just WD-40. My weights. Swivel. Alright, time turner. Uh-oh. I didn't get the glue long enough. Let me redo this. Alright, we got it going now. Like they taught you in school, measure twice, cut once, or something like that. Let me change the batteries in this cordless. Alright, back at it. Oh, my sandpaper's slipping on me. It cuts slow, but it also cuts a little quicker than you might think. And you don't want to overdo it, obviously. Let me give it a look. Well, I know just from experience I definitely have to cut some more. By the way, the beauty of having the swivel is obviously puts even pressure when I press down. Alright, we'll pull this off. Wipe her down. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put her back on the bike and recheck the squish and see what we got. Same as last time. Put the solder in the hole. Again, you don't need any of the O-rings at this time. We're not looking to seal it, and only 2 head bolts here, just on the left and right where the solder goes across. Just snug them down. Got her down to 54 thousandths now. So we're getting there. Let's see here. Yep. 54 thousandths. So we're getting there. Do a little more shaving and let's see if we can get her down to 40. Oops. You know what? I forgot to CC this head, to measure the CC on the plexiglass before I started this job. But that's okay. Like I said, I've done this a million times, so I actually know exactly how much volume is supposed to be in there with this syringe right here, because this is the one that I usually use. So we're okay. But for you at home, before you start shaving that head, you want to put a light layer of grease right around, just very light. You don't want any of the grease to come in here and take up any of the volume. Bolt it down to the plexiglass gently, and then what you do is you fill this with water up until the water just reaches the top flush right here. And you figure out how much water it can hold. So what I usually do, is start at 21 cc's, and I push it in, and if that's not enough, then I'll dump this out, blow it out, and I'll put 22, and then I'll keep doing it until I find the exact number that it takes to get this full right to the top, and then I know the cc's of the head. But we'll get that to that later when we go to get this when we start working on the dome area here, to get the compression ratio back down, to get the cc's to where they're going to be. I should have checked that first before I started to shave the head, and make sure you check it first before you start shaving the head, because I do this a lot. I know where it's supposed to be, so I'm okay. But for you at home, if you're using the 5-up head, make sure you check that ahead of time. Now, I will say, if you're using the European head, or the 2011 to 2022 head, then here shortly I'll let you know the volume that and the cc's that you should run this at. Because really the only difference between the 2011 to 2022 head and the 5UP head is they have the same dome, same shape dome and everything. I mean, they might look different in the video here. It's only because this one's dirty and this one's clean. But for the most part, they're the same. The only real difference is the squish band. So, which we're working on that right now. And I can tell you right now, the CCs, when you go to CC, if you have the 2011 to 22 head, and you need to know the CCs to get the compression ratio close to the 2006 head, it's going to be, hold on, look at my notes here, 22C, it's just under 22 cc. So if you take a syringe and you put just under the line of 22 cc's, and if you can fill that up to where it's flush, you got the volume right. And we'll get to that again in a few minutes. Alright, just check the squish again. This is cute. This time I actually stuck in there, which is pretty cool. You can see what it's actually doing here. We're smashing in there. I want to bring this to your attention at this point that you also want to consider the cylinder base gasket that you're using. That's the gasket at the bottom of your cylinder, because if you use a base gasket of a different thickness, it's going to change the squish band clearance. Well, I still have a lot of cutting to do. I only got to. And so on the cylinder base gasket, I choose to just run the stock YZ250 Yamaha OEM base gaskets. That way, I know I always can get them. I don't expect them to change their the thickness of the gasket or anything. I mean, they haven't changed it in freaking 20 years, you know. So that's what I use, so that when I do top ends, I don't have to worry about the squish band clearance changing anything, as long as I use the same type of base gasket. Another thing is that the squish clearance that we're most concerned about is at the very, very tip here right now as we're shaving, because as you'll see, it can be, see how it's 52 right here up. As I slide it up a little bit, it's at 52, and see how right here it's at 50. So that means it's tighter on this end and it's fatter on this end. That's good. You want that. You want it to be a little bit tighter right at the right here, and to get a little bit fatter as it gets towards the dome. That way it relieves a little bit of pressure as it's cramming all in there, because it's cramming in from the outer radius towards the middle, so it's going to get tighter and tighter. So you actually do want a little bit of taper, and usually I like about 2/1000 taper, which is what seems to be what we're getting right here. See, we're at 52 right there, and then right here we're at 50, so that's actually perfect. I don't even have to worry about that one. There's been times where I've had to actually shave this down right here, the inside edge of the dome, to get that taper. Some people just run them parallel, you know, meaning from here to here, from this part, or should I, from here to here, the same clearance. Some people like to have it like that, and some people like to put a taper. If you put a taper, it has to be very mild, and you want it to be tighter right here, and only get about 2/1000 bigger as you work your way up in here. So all right, I got some more shaving to do on this head, so let me go ahead and pause this and I'll keep working. All right, let me cut another piece of solder here. I just did some more shaving. Cut another piece of solder and put it on the cylinder, and set the cylinder head back on it, compress with the Kickstarter, and measure it and see what we got. Now I just ran into something I want to bring to your attention. Remember how we shaved these pins so that, you know, as we shaved the head, they wouldn't interfere? I was finding as I was putting this head on just now that it wasn't seating all the way down. There was some rock to it. These pins obviously bottomed out. I pulled the head up. I was like, man, I hope I don't have to shave the pins more. What I found was just gunk in these holes. So make sure your holes in their head are, I just blew it out, and now the head sits fully on it. So as you're doing this, keep checking and keep rocking your head, pushing on. If you end up having to shave them pins more, do that. You don't want to bottom them out and then bolt all these down. I've done that before where these pins have bottomed out, and I bolted these down tight and I cracked the head. So be careful with that. Continue on. We're getting closer. Do a little more shaving, trying to get it down to about 40/1000. All right, this might be the last time. Pop it off and measure it. So we're getting 41, 40. We got her at 40, guys. That's where I was looking to get her. Right on the very end, right at 40. Come on, focus. Yep, right on the very end. I don't know why she's not focused. There it is. She's at 40 now. If you slide her up some, then she'll be... I went too far up there. 42. So that's good. We got the taper we're looking for. I'm not so much worried about all the way up where it goes like 44, because we're going to be removing some of that. So we got the taper that we're looking for. We got the squish that we're looking for. Now our job is going to be to lower the compression ratio now. And what I mean by lower the compression ratio is if we just do this head on the way it is right here, just by milling it, the compression ratio would be way too high. So we're going to bring it back down to your standard 03 to 2010 American model compression ratio, the CCs. Well, now that we have the head milled to where we need it, or shaved, or whatever you want to call it, I'm going to use some 220 very fine sandpaper here with WD-40 on it for lube, just to polish up the surface now. Doesn't take much, and you're not even really moving material at this point, it's just polishing. And that's usually all it takes. See, got a nice surface to seal now. So we're done working on this. Now we're going to work on the dome. Okay, I know where the C's need to be, just under 22. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just get a base. I'm going to CC the head one time and get a base measurement or what it is as it sits before we start opening the dome up. More out of curiosity, I mean, I can just go right to opening the dome up. Like I said, I've done this quite a few times. So you put a very thin bead of grease, I mean barely. You try to scoot it away from the lip right here so that it doesn't squeeze in into here when you go to put it on the plexiglass here. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this down. Okay, I have her bolted down onto the plexiglass. You can see the grease in there helping to seal the water. Okay, so what I do is I put water in the syringe. Then you have to make sure you pull up the air because you don't want this touching the water or you don't get an accurate measurement. This thing is not focusing very well. There it is. All right, we're going to start at 22 cc's and let's see what we... I'm sorry, we're going to start... We need to shoot for 22. Okay, that's just under 22 right here. That's what we're shooting for. So I'm going to pop this in and let's see if it's too tight or if we need... And what you want to do is after you get it in there, you pop it up. Make sure there's no air bubbles. See that air bubble right there in the corner? Kind of just work them out. Sometimes you can just tap them, like stick a tool underneath and just tick tick tick, and they'll tap right out. So let me do that real quick. All right, got all the air bubbles out. Let me finish adding water here. Okay, it's right to the top, like I mentioned earlier. You can see it's just floating right at the top there, and we still have water left in the syringe. So that's... We have to keep doing that until there's, you know, setting this at 20, just under 22 cc's, and keep shaving, working on the dome area until it only holds just that. There's no more water left in the syringe when we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and start shaving the dome area, and I'll show you how to do that. Let me get this head off here, and we'll get started on that. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is take some 220 grit here. I'm going to cut me a straight but thin strip. Okay, then I'll fold it just so I have something to bite with. Where'd my WD-40 go? There it is. Alright. Got a little whiff of WD-40 here. I'm going to go to this bit now, the one that I shaved smooth. Slide it in there. Tighten her up. Oop.